The conditions on Earth are so terrible for one reason in particular. People do not want to know anything about hierarchy, leadership, and submission to a higher will. They refuse to integrate into the cosmic order. Humanity has suffered most through its severance from the higher will. The non-acceptance of the higher will complicates the entire construction. This should be remembered. Each construction is based on its focus. Hence, one must act by striving consciously toward hierarchy. Humanity grows weak to such an extent because it evidences disunion with the highest will. Therefore, we so powerfully affirm the focus, for without the center, the highest will cannot be assimilated. Therefore, we summon so powerfully to hierarchy. People recognize no one and nothing above themselves, especially those who are not even able to manage their own lives, refuse any guidance, and prefer to abuse those up there. Those who reject the necessity of understanding the leading concept of the teacher should be told that the present-day predominance of all-pervading decay is the result of negation of authority in all spheres of life. That is why down here prevails an order, or better, a disorder, that is diametrically opposed to the cosmic laws, to the principles of truth, justice, beauty, and love. True attainments are realized by the striving to cognize the will of the highest reason. It is difficult to accept a cosmic direction without understanding the will of the highest reason. 3/4 of human strivings are directed against the cosmic ordainments. The human spirit is not penetrating beyond the boundaries of visibility, and the opposition to the will of the highest reason is leading to destruction. That is why the earth is so far removed from heaven. Furthermore, people violate the hierarchic principle by allowing that below reigns, that the ignorant, the impure, or the weak take the lead. Then the natural order is turned upside down. The result can only be chaos. Bringing everything down and treat it as equal with the lowest is the labor of the Dark Ones, and humanity is indeed subject to these tendencies. Everyone instinctively has recourse to this destructive action. We all know very well what happens when a false leader comes to the top of a state or a business enterprise. All members of this institution will have to pay for his mistakes by suffering violence, wars, poverty, unemployment, or bankruptcy. The success of a whole state depends upon the quality of the psychic energy of its leader. A proverb says, the fish rots from the head. That means whether you admit it or not. The destiny of every community, from the family via the nation up to the global community, depends upon the quality of leadership. Human beings working hard for the upkeeping of themselves and their families are more or less the same in the businesses and countries all over the world. If some of them are worse off than others, this is almost entirely due to unworthy, unsuitable leaders. Each evil in the world is generated because of resistance to the great principle of hierarchy. Each victory is gained only by the principle of hierarchy. Therefore, one must be so strongly based upon the affirmed hierarchy. The welfare of nations is molded around a single personality. There are numerous examples of this throughout history, in the most diverse regions. Many will attribute this evident manifestation to the personality itself, but thus think the short-sighted. Those who are far-sighted understand that such a synthesis is nothing but the manifestation of the power of hierarchy. Actually, in all manifestations, the hierarchy selects a focus upon which a current can be directed. Besides, a personality of this order possesses a realized or unrealized fire, which makes the communion easy. Finally, and thirdly, hierarchy refers to the government of this earth and of the cosmos as a whole. We had just said in scientific language, in the new world apply the cosmic order, the higher laws, principles such as truth, justice, beauty, and love. We have to bring the conditions on earth closer to those in heaven. Evolution means something that already exists in the higher world as an idea, an ideal, or a thought construction, strives to embody itself on the material plane. In addition, we say in spiritual language, evolution is the plan of God for this earth and for the universe as a whole. From this follows: if we want to advance evolution, we must know and execute the will of the Creator. You do not necessarily have to think of a person. You may also understand the higher will as the spirit which dwells in all matter, which strives to reveal itself more and more, and which therefore drives us in a certain direction towards further development and perfection. The realization of the hierarchic principle therefore demands we implement the commandment of Christ. Thy will be done, on earth as it is in heaven. The words, "Thy will be done," do not mean to invite cowardly submission to circumstances and conditions. They should voice the cry of the soul for perception of the nature of the divine will and for strength to use that will aright. A new departure must be made, a new step taken, and that step must be in the direction of renunciation, submission to the divine will, regardless of the effects on the personality. In other words, the personal will must become subservient to the divine will. The will of God must prevail everywhere, in the highest as well as in the lowest spheres, even in the last corner of the material world. Then, indeed, the world would be a great reflection of the higher will. How can we achieve this high, almost fantastic goal? We have to create a new order here on earth, the goal of which is the higher will is transmitted from the very top via many intermediary stages down to the very bottom, and is actually implemented in the various small dealings of everyday earthly life. Such a form of government is called hierarchy. The establishment of a hierarchic order is the natural and necessary consequence of the realization of the principle of leadership. Hierarchy is nothing else but leadership on all levels in all social institutions. Thus, nobody and nothing remains without connection to and guidance from above, whoever he is and wherever he stands. What exactly does it practically mean to establish a hierarchy on earth? You must recognize the higher will as such cannot govern. Only people imbued with it can rule. The enforcement of the higher will means in practice to enforce the will of a higher one. Therefore, if we want to create a hierarchic order, we have to make sure that spiritual rulers take over the government. Agni Yoga calls such spiritual rulers hierarchs. This Greek word expresses a truly worthy person is endowed with power because of his reliable connection with the higher levels and his particular spiritual qualities. The task of a hierarch is to make sure, in the area for which he is responsible, whether that be a state, a city, or a kindergarten, the higher will is carried out, and the cosmic order of truth, justice, beauty, and love is actually enforced. The whole governmental and social order can be set up according to the cosmic law. Who is a hierarch? The one in a community who has risen highest on the ladder of the hierarchy of souls, and who is firmly attached to the next higher rung. A hierarch is a link in a chain, and one who fulfills the will of an even higher one. Only by knowing this is it possible to properly respond to the higher mission. What does that mean? Who stands higher than others? He is closer to the higher powers than the others, and therefore able to assimilate the laws and orders transmitted from above. The appointment of a hierarch is the appointment of one who fulfills the higher will. There is nothing greater than approaching the deity more than other people, and from there spreading the rays of the deity to the human race. A hierarch possesses three main qualities: purity, wisdom, and power, so that he can do three things: recognize the higher will, convey it to the people, and enforce it on this planet. One can build only when our carriers of fire carry our will, and the disciples accept that which is sent. Each builder knows the law of hierarchy. Are ye of those fragments of divinity who have eyes to behold the outstretched hand of the Father? Those who have ears which listen for the sound of his voice, tongues which fail not to speak the word, which will open the windows of heaven to other hungry souls. Such a spiritual ruler must have true authority. Therefore, I so often reiterate about authority. You yourself see how nations progress by affirming a leader. You yourself see that there is no other way. Thus, the link of hierarchy must be realized. A hierarch, in this sense, is not just a head of state, but also a teacher at a school or a mother in a family. A spiritual ruler is anyone who stands higher than the others in his field, and therefore can and must take the lead. Anyone who joins the chain of hierarchy as a member, in order in his place to assimilate, to implement, and to pass down the higher will transmitted from above. The chain of hierarchy is built by fulfillment of the higher will. Since Plato we know, hierarchy, the rule of the wise men, of the philosophers as kings, is the ideal form of government. We had already talked about the details of this concept in our broadcasting, The New World, Form of Government, Hierarchy.